Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're seeing this. My name is Lila. Welcome to Lila on the Grid. In my last video, I shared for the first time that I'm Gnostic. And today, in this video, I want to take you a step deeper into what that means for me. Um, and in particular, um, I want to talk about it from the world of, I, I don't know how to say this. I don't, well, the world calls it psychic. I don't necessarily, I get that that's the term that's been used. Um, and it is the familiar term. So let's say I want to have a conversation about being a psychic receiver. Some people call it a channel, some people call it a prophet. Um, and then the output of that is different for everybody, right? Um, I do want to say that I do engage with tarot cards and oracle cards, but I do not utilize them for fortune telling. I mostly utilize them for self mastery and to actually help me decode the downloads that I get. Okay. Um, so I want to be upfront and share that I was trained to use, by the way, as a person who has these abilities, it you can't just go anywhere. I mean, you can't. You're divinely guided, I believe, to be trained how to develop your natural gifts as a psychic, um, or as a divine channel, which is actually yeah, it's divine channeling. Um, and you do have to learn discernment and you do have to know where it's coming from. There's a lot that one has to do with your own vessel to be good at it. You can have a natural ability and still be tricked. You can have a natural ability but not know how to read the downloads accurately. You can distort the downloads. There's a lot that kind of goes into it, in my opinion. And I'm not perfect at it, and I'm still training and developing myself at it to be as good as I can be as a receiver of that. So the thing that I was going to say was, once you receive those data packets, what do you do with it? Some people are just tarot card readers. Some people keep it to themselves and use it personally, and some of us are supposed to also go direct with it. The old term for it is like, what was it? Oh, I thought I wrote it down. I don't remember. There's a word for it. I call it scroll keeping. There's words for it like the Akashic record and stuff like that. I am a scroll keeper of cosmic consciousness, right? And I get downloads. And I receive massive multidimensional data transmissions. And for me, the easiest way to explain it is like they're giant zipped files from divine consciousness. And my job, like if I have a divine job, right, it is actually to unzip them and to translate them into this reality, and trust that the people who are meant to hear it will receive it. But if I don't share it, they'll never get access to it. And that's currently what I'm training and developing myself in, is going public with these data files and working with the people who are meant to receive it. That's the other thing I want to say. I truly believe not every psychic or preacher or minister or whomever is meant for all people. I believe that your frequency, your translations are meant for certain groups of people at a particular time. And this is my time to share my stuff. Okay, so with that being said, about a year ago, one of those massive downloads forced me to sit down and write 2 books. Well, yeah. And the result were these 2 books. The first one is called The Tone Holder Scripture, Volume 0, The Genesis of Tone, A Spiral Scroll of Creation from Source to Self. So this is the first one, and it is available on Amazon. And then the second book that I wrote is called The Tone Holder Scriptures, Volume 1, The Restoration of Eden, a resonance-based correction of canonical Genesis. And it says Scrollkeeper of the Law of Coherence. And that is what Scribe. Scribe is the word that I was looking for. That's the old school word for it, when like one of the divine channels would get messages and they will translate them. Some were scribes. I'm a scribe. And in modern language, I call myself a scroll keeper. And what I am the scroll keeper of, or the scribe of, is what's known as the law of coherence. And ultimately, that has expanded itself to the 40 equations of harmonic law. There's also something called the 13 step down layers. And it is the calculus of the torus, which is the geometry that I utilize for the universe and I do my work out of. And I'll talk about that later. And then the quadrivium core, which is based on the Greek alphabet, but I've rewritten it inside of base 12 instead of base 10. And that is another conversation. You could say, but the one thing I do want to say about that too is pneuma, which is like the beginning of everything, right? Of the universe. It was never a void. There was always information and data inside of it, and then it overfilled, is the way they talk about it in Gnostic philosophy. I have the equivalent of that inside of my quadrivium core, and I call it G. It's XI, it's the silence vaulted gate, and numerically, I relate it to the qubit spark of 10 to the 9 qubits. That is another conversation for another day, but nonetheless, I have structure for this very sacred spiritual conversation. And everything that I just said came out of the download that I got that I put into these 2 books. So, I'm going to go ahead and I will drop the links to these books in the description below. But the other thing that I want to say about it is I'm going to start reading from these books on my other channel, the Coherence Grid, which is where I get to fulfill my role as a scroll keeper of the law of coherence. So if you're interested in hearing what's inside of these books, and hearing who I am as a divine channel, feel free to join that channel. I will also leave the link to the channel in the description below. What else do I want to say about that? My perfectionism. Let's talk about it for a minute. One of the reasons why I haven't shared this, and it's been over a year since I published them, is because I am a perfectionist, and I knew that these books were not perfect. I knew that these translations were not perfect. I knew it. But I also knew that I was meant to write it and publish them exactly as they were. So no, they're not perfect. No human language is actually, well, I actually knew that's one of the things that they trained me in, is that like that human language has done not a good job translating divine downloads. They flatten them a lot. And so I was being trained on how to share divine downloads without flattening the language. And it's weird, you guys, like, divine conversation isn't the earth grid. It's not the one where it's all earthly material possession, right? It's but it but when I read it, I'm like, yes, this is how I want to operate. So there's that. The other thing I want to say about it is that they're not perfect, and I have grown, which is great. I can also see where I've grown. And like I said, things have expanded out of this. So on that channel, I may be making commentary about what's expanded or how it's connected to, or like what I've developed since I wrote this. I know more books are coming, but these are my origin stories, so to speak. When I truly took on and accepted the role of being a divine channel and a scroll keeper. So this is kind of like the raw data of my awakening. So if you do get it, and when you do hear it, no, it's not perfect, but that's one of the reasons why I want to read it and share it on that channel, is so I can maybe share what's shifted from what I originally wrote, or things that I'm seeing differently, especially now that I've claimed myself as a Gnostic, and also to be able to share like the resemblances. Like, I got this data before I ever knew what a Gnostic was, and before I ever knew how it was defined. And so I'm looking forward to having all of those realizations. I think that's all I want to say for now.